let me know. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thetford Town Council Virtual Finance Committee meeting, Tuesday, 23rd of March, and it's 6 o'clock. Welcome, members of the committee, and welcome to any members of the public that are either watching it live or later on. We'll crack straight on to 87320, which is declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interest to receive any additional interest not already registered. Is there anything that's likely to come up on the discussions, please, colleagues?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Obviously, it should something arise as we're going through, please feel free to shout, not a problem at all. And we'll go on to 87420, which is apologies for absence to receive. Mr. Crimmen, have we had any, please?
No, I have not received any today.
Okay, no problem. I know Councillor Burnett has had some technical difficulties of late, but otherwise we're a full house, so thank you. So moving on to 87520, which is the minutes of the last meeting, to confirm the minutes of the committee meeting held on the 16th of February, which were received by full council on the 23rd of February. Oh, can I say, next slide, please? Thank you. I always wanted to say that. Dear. Silver linings from these things. So these have also been circulated previously. We have the first and second page visible on the screen. Any queries or questions regarding those two pages and their accuracy, please, committee?
No.
And then if we can move on to the next page, that's the final part, page 3. We happy to confirm those as a fair and true reflection of that meeting, committee?
Pass the minutes.
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
Any objections, please? Any abstentions? Sparkling. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 87620, which is the contracts update, which you can see before you. Just to note the attached schedule of contracts. There is no decision required on this. It is to note. Alan, is there anything that you need to draw our attention to on this?
Chair, there isn't. It actually hasn't changed from the previous meeting.
Thank you. Any questions or queries, please, colleagues?
Noted.
No, thank you.
Noted.
No problem. Duly noted then, and we move on to 87720, which is the committee financial decisions. To note the attached schedule of financial decisions. Again, these have been circulated in advance. Any questions or queries, please, colleagues? In that case, I will declare those duly noted again. Thank you. So then we move on to 87820, which is the approval of payments. We've received a number of attachments A to E regarding this, and this is to receive the attached listing of payments made since the last meeting and recommend to full council that these be approved. Any questions, please, colleagues?
No, thank you.
May I have a proposer and a seconder if possible, please?
I'll propose.
The recommendation.
Thank you. I will take Councillor Hollis as the proposer and Councillor Canham as the seconder. Is everybody in agreement with that, please?
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Any objections? And any abstentions? Super. Thank you all very, very much for that. On to 87920, which is the financial report for month 11. To receive and approve the attached income and expenditure reports for month 11. So that's the period ending the 28th of February. Again, we've had these in advance. I know you've spent all weekend poring over them and are bursting with questions and wishing to interrogate. So I'll open the floor, please.
Can sorry, Madam Chair, sorry, I can't.
Of course.
Yeah, it's not really much different to last month. In fact, it's not really much different to last month, I noticed. We've still got red areas that are worse than what we budgeted for, but I think that's to be expected because we're in unpredictable times, aren't we?
Challenging times are indeed the order of the day, Councillor Hollis. You are quite right in that observation. Mr. York, would you like to pick up on a few things, because there are quite a few quite considerable differences that do have an impact on the overall picture, particularly in terms of income that we were expecting to have seen by now and haven't done. Shall I hand over to you, Alan?
Sure. I think the observations made earlier on are quite true. Up until about December, we were actually we were on track against the revised budget. And it's only in the last 2 months that this variance has happened. So our income is down. It's down by 30,387, which is on that total line. That's attributable partly in the ALP line item of 19,000. That's due to grants not being received. And in personnel, it's some of the rentals that have been billed, but they still have to, there's still some amounts outstanding. In terms of the VEM budget, the venues, events and marketing, that's down, and that's just because the activities that we thought would happen in the summer haven't happened. So that 30,387 deficit in income is a little bit worrying. We have quite significant income, grant income and third-party receipts expected in March, but as of the 23rd, or let me be more specific, as of 1807 on the 23rd of March, we haven't seen sight of that. So there is a risk from an income perspective that we're going to have a bigger hole. What's partly saved us is on the expenditure side, you'll see that there's quite a significant underspend on expenditure. That total is 102,324. I've got a feeling that we've got projects that have not been funded, or the funding is going to happen in a different year. We at the moment are doing a lot of work on the funding. The town clerk is sitting aside and going through all the Guildhall projects and all the other projects to see where we stand. But our fear is that there is a saving now, but once these projects happen, we may have to contribute money to reserves to fund a bigger element of the projects than we anticipated at the end of March 2021. So as much as our budget looks good, we've got if you look at the net amount in the variance column of 71,937, there is a risk that could disappear. Is there a risk that we're going to end up in a big deficit for the year? I don't think that's going to happen. And the assurance that we have, like I said, we're on the 23rd of March, we've got one more week left of this month. I don't think that things are going to fall out the cupboard, or there's going to be some skeletons in the cupboard. But it's not going to, I think at the end of the month, when we've done our final year end, we're not going to end up with such a big surplus. So there's a little bit of caution. I'm an accountant by nature. I'm supposed to be cautious. But I do think, like I say, just looking at the revenue side, there's one grant of £24,000. We're not going to receive that this year. So that means our revenue budget will be down by 50,000. And our expenditure, like I say, we've got to fund some projects. So that's the overall position.
Thank you, Alan, and your supporting papers that covered this laid that out extremely clearly. Are there any other questions or queries, please, colleagues?
Just a quick query. I haven't got my supporting paper, so I can't read them. The 19,000 under ALP, does that take into consideration that we're waiting for grants for the development of the Guildhall, the outside? Because that would have been under ALP, wouldn't it?
It does. I think we've received all our what they call HLS grants for the management of open spaces. There was an amount of £10,000 that was budgeted earlier on in the year, and that hasn't materialised. And the other 9,000, I think, is for third-party contributions that just haven't happened. So like I say, the town clerk at the moment spending a considerable amount of time just running through all the project costs. The VENS manager is also managing that particular project. So we have a lot of S&T meetings trying to decipher where we are and come to a kind of conclusion and have a reliable estimate. But I do think that we are going to be under on our grants.
Could I just ask a question about finances as a whole? Because if that's all right, Madam Chair.
If it relates to the agenda item, absolutely.
Well, it does and it doesn't. At the moment, we've got things under different. We've got things under headings. When we change, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you asking, will the allocations for the committees be rearranged to reflect the budget responsibilities?
Yeah, sorry, your screen went off for a minute, so I didn't know if I was still there. That's exactly what I was going to question, yeah.
Alan, I think that's an operational question that you should answer.
The budgets will be rearranged to follow the committee. So that exercise will start next month. So when we do month one, you'll see that the priorities and the budget allocations have followed the various activities within the committees.
Mm-hmm. That's lovely, thank you.
Councillor Hollis, please, I've got your hand up.
Ignore that, Madam Chair. Councillor Cannon's just asked what I was going to ask.
Great minds thinking alike then. Any other questions or queries, please, colleagues?
No, thank you.
In the absence of anything further, can I ask for a proposer and a seconder to recommend these to full council, please?
I'd be happy to propose that, Mike Brindle.
Thank you, Councillor Brindle. Can I have a seconder, please?
I will second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Canham, and I'll go around the room properly on this one because it's always big when it's actual numbers. So, Councillor Brain, please.
Yes.
Obviously, Councillor Brindle, I'm presuming you haven't disagreed with yourself.
You're asking a really tricky question, but on this occasion, I'll manage to be consistent.
Councillor Canham.
Agreed.
Councillor Crawford.
Agreed.
Councillor Hollis.
Agree.
Councillor Harvey.
Agreed.
Super. And myself, that's a full house. Thank you all very much on that one. So we'll move then on to 880, which is the implementation of the Transparency Code. Again, this information has been circulated in advance of this meeting. We have a summary of the recommendations on the screen. And it's to consider the information to be included in the Council's Transparency Code disclosures and how best to ensure that the Council is compliant at all times. Alan, is there anything that you would like to draw our attention to or to add to from your briefing paper at all, please?
Yes, please, Chair. I think there are two aspects. One is that the Transparency Code has minimum reporting requirements and it has encouraged reporting requirements. And we don't have the capacity to do the encouraged ones. We can't produce information. I don't have a person that can sit down and spend days and days producing information. So what's underlying this recommendation is to do the minimum standards that is required by the code. But the reason is not because we're lazy or we don't want to do it. The reason is we just don't have the capacity to do it. And I'm not too sure that I could come to this council or this committee and ask for additional funding to pay for someone to actually sit and put this information together. It is complex. Hopefully at some stage we could get reports written for it, but at the moment there's quite an elaborate process to go through, filter through the information and put it there. So underlying the recommendations, like I say, it's a lack of capacity on our side rather than a lack of desire to actually fully comply with the code.
So if I may just clarify then for the committee, Alan, that we are capable and adapt to comply with the mandatory requirements. And this, the recommendations support that, but the would be better ifs and the non-mandatory elements we're not at this stage able to commit to.
I think you summarised it 10 times better than I have. Thank you.
No problem. Are there any questions, please, colleagues?
No, thank you.
Madam Chairman, it might be a silly question, but is this something that's, if we agreed with this today, that we can relook at in the future, in case in the future there is where we can uplift what we do?
A fantastic question, Councillor Canham. So we have got on Annex B that has been built up by Alan, a transparency code checklist, and that gives you an idea of the timings. So this will be coming to this committee on a regular basis, so that we can ensure that we are compliant. So this is part of our monitoring process. We say we're going to do something, and then every so often, oh, thank you, that's perfect. And then every so often we will say, yes, we are doing it, or no, we're not doing it, and we must try harder and put into place things to have it dealt with. So yes, the ongoing monitoring will be a permanent fixture of this committee. Does that help, Councillor Canham?
It does. It means that, you know, if in the future we've grown so big, we might be able to give out more, as we say. We've got the staff.
Yeah. The focus is the mandatory stuff, and yeah, that is about transparency, and yeah, it's making it clear to the public what we're doing, and also having it done in a clear manner, because we have been challenged in the past about how we put this information out. We are now very mindful about how it's been done, and within those papers there were examples of how they will be demonstrated. Councillor Hollis, did I hear you trying to get in with Councillor Canham?
No, Madam Chair,
No. Any other questions or queries, please, colleagues?
Chair, does it mean, looking at the timetable, that I could borrow money in August to go on holiday in September without it being picked up, and again in November, so I could buy Christmas presents?
Definitely not, Councillor Brain. We are not a public loans body.
Are we not?
Worth a try. Yeah, good try, Roy.
Any other questions or queries, please, colleagues? So if I go back to the recommendations, please. Lovely. So it is recommended that, and I will propose these, that the Finance Committee commit to complying with the mandatory aspects of the Transparency Code in respect of expenditure. The format for the 2019-20 expenditure report, which is demonstrated at Annex A, be adopted for future reportings of expenditure over £500. That all information be disclosed under the heading Transparency Code documents on the website and be disclosed in a CSV format. And what I would say is, because I actually queried that, that is a requirement of the Transparency Code. And the final one is that the suggested timetable at Annex B be approved by ourselves as well. I'm happy to propose that. Would somebody like to second that, please?
I'll second it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Crawford. So I'll do the usual round robin. If you could indicate if you're for or against these recommendations. Councillor Brain.
For.
Councillor Brindle.
For.
Councillor Canham.
For.
Councillor Crawford.
For.
Councillor Hollis.
For.
Councillor Harvey.
For.
That's a full house again. Thank you all very, very much for your help.
I wanted someone to say 8.
I keep getting the urge to go 7, but we won't go there. So we'll go on to 88120, which is the approval of the financial timetable, to discuss and consider the attached financial timetable. So thank you so much, Alan, for getting that up in front of us. As discussed at the last meeting, I believe it was, and I have had a desire to have this, I think, yes, 4 years since I became a councillor, to support and be a ready reckoner and be part of what is lovingly referred to as a bus manual, because if anything should ever happen to one of us, it means to say that not all the knowledge is held in one place and it is easily found, you know, and easily referred to. Alan, is there anything that you would like to say on this, please?
No, Chair, I think it's very useful. It will be reviewed on an annual basis, and we live and learn. The only thing that I just wanted to say is you'll see in the July column towards the bottom under annual reporting, there's those initials TBC, which is to be confirmed, and we are just waiting for the final audit instructions. There's rumours that the audit, the reporting and exercising of public rights will be the 31st of July, but the paperwork at the moment is very unclear. So we may have the 30th of June or we may have the 31st of July. So I'm just waiting for that information to come through, which should come through before the end of next week, and I'll update this particular timetable.
Super, thank you, Alan. And ultimately, we're dictated to on that, aren't we, in terms of AGAR and so on? That
we are.
Feeds in from that. So I suppose, yes, COVID is even affecting our reporting capabilities at present. Are there any other questions or queries, please, colleagues? In that case, can I propose that we adopt that financial timetable, obviously noting the to be confirmed as per guidance? Do I have a seconder at all, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. And I'll do the usual round robin again. Councillor Brain.
4.
Councillor Brindle.
4.
Councillor Canham.
4.
Councillor Crawford.
4.
Councillor Hollis.
4.
Councillor Harvey.
Agreed.
Thank you. You just had to mix it up there, Chris, didn't you?
Yep.
Super. So that's carried. Thank you very much for your work on that, Alan. It's much appreciated. So we'll go on to 88220, which is an update on the finance officers reforms. Over to you, Alan. I've talked enough to this evening.
Thank you, Chair. What I have done is I've got very conscious that some of these focal areas have been here for a very long time. So I've actually committed to put some target dates to have them completed. One of the biggest challenges that I have faced has been around the ordering, the procurement, etc. We've been experimenting with that a little bit, and I think we now have that in place. And so starting from the 1st of April, I think we have a very robust procurement documented process. So the ordering will disappear. Our contract management process in terms of the property rentals, that has gone ahead. We've just got one property that we haven't transferred, but that will happen shortly. That we've made some progress on. So we will be targeting to have that done by the end of April. We'll have a meeting with our consultant. I've had subsequent meetings since the last meeting, and we've made some quite good progress there in terms of developing a strategy. The one thing that we have been doing is we've been institutionalizing a lot of the kind of new way of treating VAT into our accounting records. So going forward, we won't have such a challenge. And then if I could just go to the next page, there is some green, because I always feel very guilty if I come to a meeting and there's no green. The Transparency Code checklist, I can now say it's green because you've approved it, and the financial calendar for the 2021-2022 year. So hopefully at the end of April, there'll be a lot more green in terms of the ordering and the buying functions.
Wonderful.
Well done.
Thank you, Alan. Are there any questions for Alan, please? Well done, Alan. So duly noted, and thank you very much for your hard work. Be nice to see. Sounds awful, but it would be nice to see what comes out in terms of the internal audit and how that reflects on the improvements that we have made. So we'll go straight on to 88320, which is correspondence. Has there been any, Alan, please?
There hasn't been.
In that case, we'll go on to 88420, which is the committee officers update. Any more info since the agenda was released, please, Alan?
I think since then we've had with councillors Crawford and Canham, We had an internal control review. Unfortunately, one of the councillors that was nominated for that committee wasn't able to attend. I'm in the process of drafting a report, and then we'll put everything together for the next Finance Committee meeting, and the report will be distributed as usual with the supporting papers.
Smashing. Thank you very much. Anything else to add on the update?
Nothing else.
Super. So we'll finish on 88520, which is community engagement. To discuss and agree any consultation or media release required. Is there anything that we would like to say? I think ultimately our main objective on the community engagement side of things is not so much a consultation or media release, but the important thing is to keep monitoring that transparency code aspect and always consider the would be better ifs. So if nobody has anything further on that community engagement element, I shall close the meeting. Thank you all very, very much for your time. And